Hi, today I am going to talk about software estimation techniques. I will start with baselining the requirements, functional and non-functional, then using a work breakdown structure technique to uh, estimate for tasks and activities. Then I will talk about certain methodologies and techniques for estimation, and then I will be taking you through how you can arrive at a total effort estimate once you have identified your development effort estimate. And today's video will be limited to this. Sequencing and scheduling we will see in the next video. So let's begin. Before you can estimate, you should be clear that your requirements that you have at hand, you have baselined it. Okay, because your estimates would change if any changes in requirement happen. So baseline your requirement, and you should have complete functional and non-functional requirements with you which you want to estimate for. Now once you have done that, you will use work breakdown structure technique. Essentially, you will break down each and every requirement to smaller tasks or activities, as small as maybe which can in general be done within say 4 hours of effort. So it can range from starting from 4 hours to any large number of effort, maybe not more than 40 hours. Why I would say why you should do this, because any task which is less than 4 hours will be too cumbersome for you to manage, very small tasks to track those. And if it is too big, more than 40 hours of effort, again there is a chance that you might miss out on certain details if you are tracking at a very macro level also. So don't go too micro and don't go too macro also. So that's one important thing to understand. So you have certain requirements. You break down those requirements into smaller tasks. For example, you have a requirement of developing say um, a login screen. Okay, so what are the various things you need to do for developing a login screen? So first of all, you should have a screen where you should have a username field and a password field and a submit button, right? And probably you should also give a mechanism for user to do a forgot password or a reset password. So these are now you need to so you have broken down a functionality of login screen into different set of activities, and you can further drill down these into different tasks or activities, because one task could be designing the screen, the other task could be ensuring that database has relevant tables. For it, you have defined the proper columns in the table, and another task could be defining the logic for ensuring that username and password are correct, and actually checking the login against the database and ensuring the authentication and authorization. So you can see that a simple functionality of login screen can be broken down into various tasks and activity. So in this manner, you should break down all your requirements into smaller tasks and activities. This is called as work breakdown structure. Now, once you have done this activity of breaking down your requirements into smaller piece of activities and tasks, you can list these down somewhere. I mean, to begin with in an Excel file, or if you are using a project management tool, you can put it there. Now, now comes the part of where you actually go and do the estimation. Now, there are two things that we will do here. One is we will use certain methodologies of estimation. What could be the methodologies? Uh, you can use a simple, medium, complex methodology, as in you define for your purpose. You define what is simple for you, and what is a medium functionality for you, what is a complex functionality for you. So you can say if my screen has up to 5 fields, it is a simple screen. If I am not making more than 3 database calls, it is a um, uh, simple functionality file or a class file. If my stored procedure is not interacting with more than 3 tables, it is a simple stored procedure. And similarly, you can define for medium, similarly, you can define for complex. And you can say for any simple screen, my effort is 4 hours or 8 hours. For a medium screen, it is 16 hours. For a complex screen, it is 40 hours. So, and same way you can define for the middleware, same way you can define for the stored procedures. Or whatever components you are having in your system, you can define simple, medium, and complex accordingly, and you can allocate certain hours for each of the types. So that's one methodology to be used. The other methodology people generally use is expert judgment. So, and it's perfectly all right to use any methodology you want as long as you are consistent with it. So expert judgment is nothing but your experience based estimation. So in past, if you have developed similar kind of application, you can say for this type of work I will take these many hours, for this type of work I will take these many hours, and so on and so forth. Another methodology which has been very famous is called as function point analysis or function point estimation. It's a very broad topic. We can talk about it in some other video. I will definitely want to talk about it in some other video, but that is one. So you essentially arrive at function points using certain techniques, and you convert these function points into hours estimate based on certain conversion according to the technology chosen. If you have chosen Java technology, there will be a separate conversion factor. If you have chosen .NET technologies, there will be a separate conversion factor, and so on and so forth. So now these are the different methodologies that you can use to estimate the work. Now you will use this to estimate the development effort for each of your activity or task in the work breakdown structure. Now development effort includes coding and unit testing efforts. Now along with this, I would also suggest to use certain techniques of estimation. What do I mean by that? One is that you have arrived at just one number using any of the estimation techniques like function point or expert judgment or simple, medium, complex. So you arrive at one number for each task. That is called a single point estimation. There is also a technique called 3-point estimate where you arrive at 3 different numbers for each activity. So first number could be a pessimistic estimate. That means you would assume that things can go wrong while you are working on that development of that particular piece of code or that particular activity or task. Some things can go wrong, or you don't have enough information at the moment, so you are being pessimistic and you come up with certain number. The second estimate will be an optimistic estimate where you think that no, I have all the information, I know that this is very easy and I can very well do it very quickly. So that's called an optimistic number. And then there is a actual number, which if you have a decent team size, if you have a decent skill set of team, if you have considerable clarity on the requirement, you don't have too many assumptions, at the same time you are not very confident, but somewhere on the average, then you put that is called as medium estimate. So you have 3 points of estimate: pessimistic, optimistic, and medium. Now what you do is you arrive at a weighted average of these 3 numbers for each of the activities. So suppose you had 100 activities in the work breakdown structure, you will arrive at 3 estimates for each of these 100 activities, and then you will take weighted average of these 3 for each of the activity. And how you calculate the weighted average? It's pessimistic plus 4 times of medium plus optimistic divided by 6. So you give more weightage to the medium estimate, and then you arrive at the weighted average. So that's the number which is more likely, right? Medium is nothing but most likely estimate. And then you should also have a confidence interval which can be your difference between your optimistic estimate and the pessimistic estimate, that is P minus O, right? divided by 6. So if you say p minus 4 divided by 6, that is your range. So suppose for any activity your pessimistic number is 10, suppose your pessimistic number is 25, your optimistic number is 10, and your most likely number is 15. So 10 plus 4 times 15, which is 70, plus 25, which becomes 95, that divided by 6, which will be roughly 16, right? 95 divided by 6 is roughly 16, will be your estimate for this particular activity, and your standard deviation will be p minus o, that is 25 minus 10, 15 divided by 6, which is roughly 2.5. So your range of estimate will be 16 plus minus 2.5. That means 13.5 to 18.5. So your effort should, your actual effort when you will start executing the project, your actual effort will be somewhere between 13.5 and 18.5. So that's the whole idea behind 3-point estimate. Why we do 3-point estimate is because if you see, we are taking a weighted average and we are also coming up with a standard deviation, and statistically over a set of activities, right? I said suppose you have 100 tasks and activity in your work breakdown structure. If you have done this, if you have followed this methodology, in some cases your actual effort will be lesser than what you have estimated for. In some cases it will be more than what you have estimated for, and overall it will average out to be the same, because statistically you have done it. So that's certain technique which you can use it. Now what is the next step? Now what you have done here is you have estimated for the items in the work breakdown structure, and you have actually arrived at the development effort, which is coding and unit testing effort, which is also called as cut effort. But this is only the development work, right? What about other activities? Requirements gathering, design, defining architecture and design, coming up with the test cases, identifying the test design. Then what about system testing activities? Then what about the project management activity? So you also need to arrive at numbers for these activities. So once you have done the estimate for development effort, as a rule of thumb, the development effort is 50% of the total effort. So let us assume that your development effort came out to be 1000 hours. So your total effort should be 2000 hours, because development effort is 50% of the total effort. So put the total effort as 2000. Now out of the remaining 50%, now out of this 2000 hours, 50% is anyway development, which we have already calculated. So out of the remaining 50%, the 10% of total effort is requirements gathering. That means 10% of 1000, which is 100. Then 15% of that total effort will be architecture and design, which is nothing but 150 hours. And 25% of the effort will be system testing. So 25% of 1000 will be 250 hours. So 2000, it will be 500 hours. So 25% of 2000 hours. So your 500 hours, your 1000 hours are your development effort out of 2000, and 200 hours are your requirement, and your 300 hours are your architecture and design, and 500 hours are your system testing. So that becomes your total 2000 hours. Now on top of this, you will add 10 to 15% of project management effort, which is on top of 2000. So you can decide to choose 10% or 15% depending on the complexity of the project you have at hand. So if we suppose we say 10%, then 10% of 2000 will be 200. So 200 hours of effort you will put as project management effort. So your total effort will be 2000 plus 200, 2200. Now you may say, Okay, if development effort is 1000 and we know that it should be 50% of total, and my total is 2000, so why do I need to break down to other components like requirements, design, and things like that? The reason you should break it down, because otherwise how will you ensure that you are putting the right resource allocation at the right place for the right activity, right? Because we know that requirement activity should happen in between. System testing might continue along with the development in an agile world, and architecture and design should probably happen before coding can start and things like that. Now, the other thing which I want to also capture here is that even if you're following an agile methodology project, you may say, I will do story point estimation and I can plan sprints and things like that. But still, it is a good idea to first identify an overall estimate of the project and then follow sprint wise story point estimation, because then you will have a better understanding of a ballpark estimate. The estimate which you are coming up now is a ballpark estimate. When you actually do the sprints, things may change on realities, but you will still have at least a baseline against which you can track your project. So this was about the estimation techniques. Next, we'll talk about how we can sequence the different activities in the work breakdown structure, and based on the sequence and the effort estimate, how can we uh, align these in a project schedule and come up with the timeline of the overall project. Thank you.